Yeah, why don't we get started? Thanks, ladies, for jumping in and going through the training again today. Honestly, I think mental training when it comes to mindset, that is probably the most important part. If I were to pinpoint, I mean, they're all important, don't get me wrong. But out of these 5 topics that I'm going to cover, it is one of the big things that tends to go overlooked through most, whether it's most programs or most coaches. It's something as time has gone on, I've become more and more passionate about empowering individuals that I work with to, work on their mindset. And especially as individuals working in, as a first responder, police, fire, military, paramedics, it's super important to go to touch on this. I think it's definitely underutilized. And actually coming up, I have a podcast. If you're not subscribed to it, I believe it's in my email link. But coming up, I'm recording an episode with she's a psychologist. She works almost exclusively with first responders. So she's going to bring up a lot of stuff on that podcast. So if you're interested in listening to podcasts and kind of educating yourself further and stuff like that, you can definitely check that out. It's in the emails that I send you guys. There's a podcast link there. Anywhere you listen to them, you can find them. So I'll say this right now, she's going to have much better and probably more in-depth information than I will provide you today. This is going to be based off of the experience I've had in working with the people that I work with first responders, and predominantly first responders and athletes is who I've always worked with over, my decade and a half of training and coaching. But, that mindset, that mental state is something that's incredibly important and something I'm continually educating myself further on. But all these things that I'm going to give you today is going to be based around my experience and based around what I know works and what I know doesn't work. And it's honestly, a lot of the information is taken from individuals that are in this realm, much smarter than myself. But what I'll do is I'll get started and we'll just hop right to it. So touching on mindset, we'll go through, again, kind of the same thing, same template that we've always done with all these trainings. If any questions pop up, if anything comes to mind, feel free to use the chat box. I will open up the chat box just so that, I'll maybe stop this so I can see the chat box, just so that, I can use the chat box for any questions that pop up. Okay. So sorry, I lost my train of thought there. So mindset training objectives we're going to go through today is what mindset is and why it's important to focus on, why it's important to incorporate into your training for your occupation, for your career. We're going to go over the 4 daily laws to focus on and build a strong mindset. Okay. So 4 kind of, we'll say, things that I've seen over time that are, they just are what they are. So it's important for you to kind of understand these 4 laws. We're going to go over the 3 daily tasks. So these are actionable items that you can do daily to help develop some clarity, build a strong mindset as time goes on, and ultimately achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And then at the end, I'll give you guys a free guide to start working on building that strong mindset. You can do as early as today. Okay. So these are a lot of things that I've employed into my own practice, we'll say, as a first responder, as a coach, and with the first responders I work with. So everything I give you today, like I said, is all taken from people much smarter than myself. Again, quickly, who this training is for. If you're a female first responder, have some experience, and you're just interested in this topic of mindset and how to develop mindset. Again, legal disclaimer, just have to throw this into the webinar. I'll start by saying I'm not a clinical psychologist. I do not have an undergrad in psychology or anything like that. I am a certified trainer. This is, again, not necessarily my realm, but definitely something that factors into the people I work with in the success they see or don't see. And so this by no means is meant to replace professional help from a psychologist or somebody like that, but is meant to add to your knowledge and provide some direction for you when it comes to mindset and training. So again, just get that out of the way. If you want to pause the screen, if you're watching a recording, you can read this in its entirety. But ultimately, if anything, seek professional advice from a registered clinical professional. should it warrant that. But again, hopefully these tools I give you will point you in the right direction. So my promise to you is at the end of the day, you'll get clarity on what mindset is and why it's important to focus on for first responders. We're going to go over the 4 laws again, like I mentioned, and it says single task, 3 tasks. I'm going to give you 3 tasks that you can do daily and a free guide outlining how to develop a strong mindset or what you can do to develop a strong mindset. So why I built this training, honestly, like mindset, when it comes to mindset, it is the key. It is probably the one key that's fundamentally overlooked by most trainers, most professionals who work with high performance individuals. When I say high performance individuals, that's athletes, that's anybody whose job and or life relies on their physical abilities. First responders, perfect example of that. So one of the big keys to success on any program is mindset and the mindset that goes with that. One of the things that I mentioned this already, it's often overlooked, but one of the things that I believe fundamentally is that, you can't change the external without changing the internal as well, and vice versa. And so when I say physical and mental beings are connected, your mind and body are one. They're not 2 separate things, they're one. So for me to completely overlook mindset, I did that early stages in my career when I didn't quite understand the effect mindset had. But now, knowing and working with individuals over many years, mindset is fundamentally important and a big piece to seeing success or not seeing success, whether you're doing a program, whether you're working with a coach, or whether you're just winging it, which I probably wouldn't advise. If you've watched this far, you probably start to believe the same thing, that winging it probably won't get you to where you want to go. So like I said, I wanted to provide some concrete steps to employ. So another reason why I built this training is a lot of, especially nowadays, you might see on Instagram, you might see some places that, mindset is important, and they give you this foo-foo, meditative state stuff, which can be beneficial, can be helpful, but it doesn't give concrete steps. Like many of the people I work with, the first responders I work with, just basically tell me like, Brandon, just tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. And I tell them what they need to do, and then they see great success. So I wanted to kind of give that same sort of tactic when it came to mental training or training your mental state or your mindset. And so giving those concrete steps, I think, is really important. Not just saying, hey, you need to work on mindset. Mindset's really important, but actually giving you like concrete things like, tell me what to do, I'll do this. And, then you start to see over time some progress in the direction that you want to see. And then again, another reason why I built the training, it's necessary. Okay. Day to day, you're going to face situations on the job where it's incredibly important that you have a strong mindset. Okay. If you're working on the job already, you know this to be true. And so developing that strong mindset is incredibly important, and doing it in a healthy and constructive way, not a unhealthy and destructive way. Okay. And so giving you the tools and the concrete things that you can do to facilitate proper mindset training is ultimately why I built this. Okay. So with mindset, okay, we're, again, if you're going to stay to the end, you're going to get some clarity. You're going to get those 4 rules, those three habits, those 3 daily things that you can do. And then that customized, I apparently didn't proofread this well enough, but a customized mindset guide built for you and your goals of what you're trying to get to or where you're trying to go. So what is mindset? Mindset, if you take, like just Google it, you're going to find that, Merriam-Webster defines it as a mental attitude or inclination or a fixed state of mind. So that's the like bare bones, basic definition of what is mindset. Okay. So it's an attitude or inclination. So it's a way you perceive something. It's an attitude, or it's a fixed state of mind. Like you view the world through a certain lens. Okay. So that's generally speaking what your mindset or what the definition of your mindset is going to be. As I go forward, I actually prefer to use the term ethos instead of mindset. And so there's a couple reasons for this. One, way back in the day and back in university, I took many Greek mythology courses. And so a lot of those Greek words really resonate with me personally. But I also like the word ethos in terms of ethos is the Greek word for character, or the guiding ideals, principles, beliefs, and assumptions that dictate our response to the world around us. Okay, so that is ethos. So when I say mindset or ethos, and my clients that I work with often I'll use those two words interchangeably. Okay. I'll say mindset or I'll say ethos, but I mean, as a coach, I mean the same thing. And when I say ethos or mindset, I'm really talking about, okay, what is your character, your guiding ideals, principles, beliefs, assumptions on the world that dictate your response to the world around you. Okay. So that's what I view, and what, again, this is my personal experience. Again, it's not meant to be the be all end all, but just an exposure to my train of thought. So when it comes to ethos, it's important to understand a few things. Okay. So why is this important for first responders to understand? Why do you care to watch this? If you're watching this, it's important to understand ethos and what ethos is and why it's important, because it's your natural response to the opposition, obstacles, and difficult situations that you're inevitably going to face. Okay. Most of the women I work with, okay, are, again, female first responders. I do have legacy clients that are not, not women, who are former athletes who, I've worked with for years. But any new clients I take on, almost for at least the last, as long as I can remember anyway, are women who work as a first responder. And you inevitably are going to face situations. And when I talk to these women, some of them they're not on with fire. They're not on with police. And depending on where they are, I can kind of prep them in a way that basically to state like, hey, with where you're at, located in the country, and with, yes, it's 2020, it's progressive, but you're still going to face opposition, simply with the fact that you're a female wanting to work as a firefighter. And I think to go into that thinking that's not the case is you might be in for a rude awakening. Of course, we don't wish that to be the case, but the women I work with, it's awful. Some of the things that they tell me that are, their coworkers, their male coworkers, are told to them. But that doesn't necessarily change the fact that those situations still come up. Yes, it's 2020. We don't want them to come up, and it's shitty that they come up, but they still come up. And so how you respond to those situations can be helpful to you in your career, or they can be destructive to you in your career, and your mental health, mental state of mind. And so it's understand, to know yourself, to know your own personal ethos can then help you understand, okay, now then going into these situations, what is my response going to be? How can I prep myself? And so it's important to understand what your own ethos is, so that going into situations that are, that's just like very high level. This isn't even getting into the potential PTSD and shit that you're going to deal with. And so knowing where your ethos is, can help you in preparation prior to even experiencing any of those situations. When it comes to first responders, reactions matter, seconds matter. Okay. Again, this shouldn't be news to anybody. But how you react to something, is large in part going to be based off of what your ethos is. Okay. And if your ethos has you reacting in a state of fear, or has you reacting in a state of, no precision or anything like that, that can result in potentially catastrophic situations on the job. And so again, going through mindset and ethos, it's important to understand who you are as an individual and prep yourself in how you're going to react when unforeseen or inevitable situations are going to pop up. Okay. Because in those situations, you want to be as ready as absolutely possible. So again, none of this is probably new to you, or nothing should be shocking you at this point. The other thing it's important to understand is your response to adversity actually dictates success or failure. Okay. And we'll get into that in a little bit, but it's important to understand where your ethos is, because as mentioned before, ethos is our response to the world around us. Okay. Our guiding ideals, our guiding beliefs, our guiding principles on which we live life. And part of life is adversity. It's going to happen. Absolutely is going to happen. And our ethos is going to dictate how we are going to respond to that. Okay. So when it comes to mindset and ethos, now this is not meant to be an exhaustive list. I basically just wrote out a bunch of words. If anything's coming up to anybody here, feel free to use the chat box and type it in. But with winning character traits or winning ethos traits, these are, again, just words that the women that I've worked with and I've seen, helped them see great success, and it's come through a lot of hard work on their part and a lot of soul searching on their part. But where they see success, they're going to exemplify a few character traits. And I tried to get these as simplistic and to the point as possible. But again, this is not an exhaustive list. There are tons of character traits that I could have listed. But courage was a big one. Okay. And if you remember from before, those 4 C's, courage is actually one of those 4 C's. And so having the courage to walk into a situation where failure is a very real possibility, but you're still walking into that situation with courage anyways. That's what courage is in many situations. And what I've seen courage to be is seeing those situations. And even though, there's a high probability of failure, walking into them anyway. Okay. Humility is another one. Again, having the humility to learn, to experience failure and to learn from it and move forward. That's some winning character traits, again, of women that I've worked with who exemplify humility, tend to see greater success through their career, in their relationships with family, with their fitness levels. If you're here, like, I want to get the mindset of like how to stay motivated and work out. That humility is part of it. Okay. Confidence. And this is a big one, especially with the women that I've worked with. A lot of them will come to me not having the confidence of, or feeling like they don't have the confidence to perform the way they feel they should, or they think they should perform. And I've worked with women who would crush a fitness test and not feel confident at all. And so, but through working on mindset and through working on their ethos, they developed that confidence over time. And we'll get into that in a little bit here. But confidence is a big one. If you have confidence, it's going to be easier for you to walk into those situations with courage, right? Self-control. It's another one. Do you have the self-control, or do you just kind of wing it all the time? So again, it's not an exhaustive list by any means, but it's just some items that I've seen of the women that I've seen be super successful. Some of the things that they've shown me, just in part of it is just innately who they are. Part of it is, stuff that they've worked on and consciously worked on to get more of. Patience is one. It can be easy to not have patience, but if you do have patience, you can see better life progress, we'll say, or career progress, or fitness or health progress, whatever you want to say. Determination. Okay. Not giving up, being determined. That's another, what I would call winning character trait. Optimism, optimism that, and this is not, when I say optimism, it's not like blindly thinking, everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows and we're all going to be happy and nice to each other, but optimism in that, employing all these things, like the greater good will come out of it, even if it doesn't look like it's going to come out of it. And we'll get into this in a little bit, but that optimism is, from what I've seen, the women I've worked with, the ones who have that optimism, again, see great progress and ultimately end up accomplishing the things that they want to accomplish. Persistence, you could kind of say persistence and determination is one and the same, but it's in that realm, right? Being persistent towards their goals. Consistent, if you remember those 4 C's, is a big piece of that. Okay, so again, not an exhaustive list, but just some of the character traits that I've seen through experience and working with these individuals, of the women who've seen great success. Those are some of the things that they've had. Now, if you look at that list and you're like, I don't have that, I don't have this, I don't have that. That's not every one of them had every one of those things, but they were stronger in some areas. Maybe they had more confidence, but they didn't have much self-control. Okay. Again, we use these tactics that I'm going to give you on this training to help them build those aspects that they wanted to build or felt that they were weak at. Okay. So if I look at the 4 C's, again, this shouldn't be anything new to you. If you watch the training, if you watch the nutrition training, this is brought up again. So if you as an individual can do these 4 things and seek to do it every day, you almost guaranteed will see progress. Now, when it comes to 4 C's, when I look at clarity, okay, what is clarity when it comes to training mindset or training, your ethos. Okay, clarity means going through a list. You can go through an exhaustive list of, what are some character traits that are important to me? Okay, which ones do I want to get better at? That is having clarity. Okay, courage. Okay, the courage to actually do the hard thing and do the soul searching and do the digging to dive into that mindset. Consistency, doing it every damn day. Okay, that is where you're going to see progress. Again, it's not going to be overnight, but it's over time. It's going to compound, and you're going to see. You're going to look back and you'll be like, man, I have way more self-control now than I did a year ago, with not just like one thing, but everything in life. Okay, and communication. Communication, when I say that, it's communication with the people around you, with the people who are leading you, whether that's bosses, whether that's coaches, whether that's senior leadership, whether that's whatever. That's communication with your loved ones, with your partner or spouse or kids or family, communication with your friends. I mean, everybody has a different role, but it's communicating with everyone around you who has some significance to you, and who want the best for you. Communicating with them with where you're at, and then again, having that clarity with them, having the courage to communicate with them, and being consistent in your communication with them on a day or weekly basis. So when you do these 4 things regularly, meaning every day, as much as you can, when you employ these 4 C's, and then you apply the things that I'm going to give you later in the training, you're going to, over time, see improvements, the ways that you want to see improvements when it comes to your mindset or when it comes to your ethos. Okay, so before we get into the tactical things that I'm going to give you, there's 4 simple rules I wanted to go over as to, it's important to understand these 4 things in order to develop a strong ethos. Okay, so the first thing is you always have the power of choice. Okay, so this is actually a phenomenally profound thing, but no matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what situation you are, doesn't matter, like everything, all things aside, you always have the power of choice. You don't necessarily control, we'll get into this in a little bit, but you don't have the choice of what happens to you, but you do have the choice of how you react to it. Okay, we touched on that before. You always have the choice of you. Okay, so this is an empowering thought to think about, is regardless of your situation, regardless of what you want to accomplish, regardless of the cards that are stacked against you, you always have the choice over your response and your reaction to how you view things. Okay, so I look at that, that's an empowering thought. Like my life is up to me. My life is my choice. Okay. And yes, there are situations that are outside my control that I don't have choice over, but I still have choice over me and how I respond or react to these outside things that I don't have control over. So again, you don't have control over people. You don't have control over situations. I remember when I was young, very young, I was in a relationship, and a big part of why that relationship didn't work is we tried to control each other. Now, this was like years ago, a decade and a half ago. I was very young, and looking back, I'm like, well, that's why it didn't work, is because like I wanted her to be who she wasn't, and she wanted me to be who I wasn't, and that's ultimately why it didn't work. Now, looking at my life now, I'm very happy with how my life turned out. I'm with I have a wife who's wonderful. She's beautiful. She's smart, and she, but why we work is we don't try and control each other. Okay. We both understand that we have the choice over ourselves. Not to say we don't get in spats or anything like that. Every relationship has those, but we have the choice over ourselves. Okay. And that's just a relationship standpoint. Okay. You don't have a choice of, I think to one of my good friends, he's a paramedic, and he showed up to a call. It was a skydiving accident. And as you can imagine, there wasn't really anything he could do. He had the choice of, letting that get to him, or just being there for the family. And the power that came out of that, even though it was a horrific situation, even though he, did have some slight PTSD and stuff afterwards, he felt so good about being there for the family. Just from an emotional standpoint of like, hey, like, I'm sorry, this sucks. You can't change situations, but you can change how you approach situations. And so it can be an empowering thought. There's zero limit to you accomplishing what you want. Okay, that's another benefit of the power of choice. Is honestly, there's zero things stopping you. And actually, if you listen to podcasts or anything like that, there's one dropping Friday on whatever the date's going to be, October 30th, I think. And I interviewed she's a trainer, but she's also a firefighter. And she is like a beacon for, there's zero limit into you accomplishing what you want. Okay. And if you want it, go for it. You have the choice to go for it. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but you have the choice to go for it. And I think that's awesome. And again, this is speaking to the world we live in here and now. But there is always a choice. There's always a way out. And not to get too deep, but sometimes the way out or the choice is easier than others, but it does always exist. Okay, there's a story. I'll maybe touch on this. There's a story, and I'm going to butcher it. It's going to be terrible, but I'll try and get the point across anyway. A story about how a man was in jail, and he outlasted, I believe it was Vietnam. I believe he was a prisoner of war. Again, I could be butchering the story completely, but it's very foggy in my memory. But anyway, he was as a prisoner of war, going through horrendous situations, and yet he still had a positive attitude with it. And what he accomplished was he made it through that, and he came out the other side. And he probably had horrific things, but his mindset and ethos was so strong that he got through it when most others passed away within that prisoner of war camp. And so doesn't matter how dire the situation is, you always have that choice. Okay. Now, one of the sobering thoughts that I like to bring up is either you make a decision or a decision will be made for you. And the best way I can explain this is, as a first responder, if you don't make a decision in the heat of the moment, okay, something's going to happen either way. Okay. If you're a police officer and you're dealing with a suspect and they pull a knife on you, you have a decision right there in that moment on what you're going to do. Now, you might have multiple directions you could go with that. Okay. But if you don't make a decision and they start coming at you, and you don't make a decision to do something, anything, that's probably not going to end well. Okay. Not to say it will end well on your decision, but again, it's just to illustrate the idea or the fact that if you don't make a decision, life will make that decision for you. So you have the power to make the decision, but in not making a decision, that's your decision, if that makes sense. So the fear of choosing and making mistakes is often what inhibits people from actually making decisions, for whether it's split second, in the heat of the moment as a first responder, or whether it's what to do with their life. Like, the best way I can say is like, do I go to the gym and wing it, or do I, work with a coach and buy a program or pay for coaching or one-on-one coaching or whatever. The fear of like making the wrong decision. Maybe this coach is full of shit. Maybe this coach is a terrible coach. The fear of making a decision. Well, you're making the decision that you're going to choose to wing it and do it on your own, and probably not make the progress that you want to, unless you're, super educated and have a exercise science degree, in which case go for it. But, that's one example of many. But at the end of the day, like, not making a choice is still making a choice. So it's empowering to think like you always have the power of choice. Okay. That power lies within you. One of the simple rules to understand is outcomes can be influenced, but never controlled. Okay. So you can always, your choices, the way you react can influence certain outcomes, but they never dictate outcomes. So that's just to say the only guarantee of outcomes, the only guaranteed outcomes possible is perceived success or failure. And I say perceived success or failure because you could be in a situation where it looks dire, it looks like failure, but how you perceive it is it's failure. It could be, very well could be, that the success is going to come down the road. Okay. You have to fail at things a few times before you actually succeed at. Most people do not succeed the first time. So I put one of my favorite quotes in here. So it's ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. So the idea that like you're going to do stuff and failure is inevitable, and you can choose to accept that failure and let it stop you in your tracks, or learn from that failure, make some adjustments and move forward, move on. Okay. One great example of this is a lot of the women I work with do not pass their fitness testing their first kick at the can. Most of them fail the first time. And that's usually where they end up connecting with me, is that, they failed and they want to pass. And so, but they don't give up. That's, I think, the biggest point I want to illustrate is they don't quit. They don't let that initial failure stop them from trying to get to where they want to go. Okay. They have the power of choice. They know they have the power of choice, and they choose to keep going even though there's hurdles, obstacles, setbacks. Okay. So I really love this quote. So I wanted to throw it in there. But it's the idea of you're going to fail. Failure is inevitable. As children, kids are terrible at things. None of them are great athletes, as soon as they start walking, very few. And instead, they fail, and they fail a lot, and they fail often, and they fail frequently, but they get up and they keep going, and they make the choice to not let the failure stop them from walking, stop them from running. They keep failing until they eventually become kind of good at it. There's another quote, Adventure Time. If you follow that, and I think I put it in another training, but like the first step to getting kind of good at something is sucking at something first. Okay. And as adults, we kind of lose that thought. We lose that, we feel like we have to be good at something. We don't feel like it's okay to suck at something, but truthfully, it's expected. If it's your first time doing it, you should suck at it. And if you're good at it, awesome. Just, you progress faster that way. But what you do with inevitable failure can either empower you or deny you. But you always have the power to choose whether it's going to empower you or stop you from getting to where you want to go. And understand that, like, within this context, like, bad things happen to good people, good things happen to bad people, and everything in between. The world is what it is. You can't stop it. But again, you can choose how you react to it. And you can't control the outcomes. You can't control good things happening to yourself, but you can control your perspective, and you can control your reaction, and which could potentially influence that potentially negative outcome to down the road being a positive outcome to what you want it to be. Case in point, if you failed a fitness test and then you try again, you fail again, and then you maybe link up with a coach or try again after, training hard, and then you pass it, the outcome that you wanted was that you passed it, but it took some time. Okay. So the outcome was influenced, but it wasn't guaranteed, and it was never controlled. It was just influenced. So a lot of people will think, they work towards an outcome, putting all their eggs onto the outcome rather than empowering themselves. Like, okay, I'm putting all the eggs into myself, and out of that, I'm going to influence the outcome. And if I don't get the desired outcome, you have the choice, either quit and move on to something else, or make some adjustments, make some tweaks, and try again, and keep doing that until you achieve your desired outcome. And that's where, if I go back to those character traits, that's where determination and persistence comes in. Okay. 4 simple rules to understanding in order to develop a strong ethos. Life is hard. Okay. I threw another quote in here, and I don't know where I got it. I couldn't find the exact quote, so I kind of tried to remember what it said. Training every day is hard. Being limited by your fitness or athleticism is hard. Investing in your health is hard. Being inhibited by your health is hard. Maintaining motivation is hard. Gaining back your motivation is hard. Knowing this one truth, if you choose your easy, meaning if you take the easy way out, life will present you with the hard. But if you choose your hard, life will present you with the easy. And so, the quote I tried to reference here is much better and much more. It's written way better than what I wrote there. But the idea, I think, comes out is that, either you choose your hard or you choose your easy. And if you choose your easy, life's going to choose the hard for you. So again, it's an empowering thought that you have the choice, but it's also a sobering thought that, life is going to be hard either way. Doesn't matter what you choose, life is going to be hard, but you do have the choice into what hard path you're going to take. And there's going to be periods in life that it's harder than others. And that's just life. And again, none of this should be new revelations to you. And if it is, great. But the last thing to understand to developing a strong ethos is that perspective is powerful, and it's far more powerful than what people will give it. Okay, perspective can be huge in achieving the outcomes that you want to achieve versus not. Okay, that perspective, again, that perspective on failure. I can perceive that failure to be, well, this is a sign that the universe doesn't want me to, become a police officer because I failed my pair, or I failed the Army. U.S. Army just came out with the new ACFTs, so I failed the ACFT, so obviously I shouldn't be in the Army. You can take that as a failure, or be like, shit, there's some stuff I got to work on. I'm going to either seek to educate myself or seek to link up with a coach or research and develop a program. Probably wouldn't recommend that, but I need to address this. I need to get better at it. And if you're a reader or you like listening to audiobooks, I highly recommend listening to the book, The Obstacle is the Way. Perspective is powerful. There's another book actually that's not in this. If you're writing this down, hopefully you're taking notes. Another book, Injuries Can Be Hard for Athletes, for anybody who's physical or active. Injuries can be very detrimental to your mental health, your mental state. So one book that I usually recommend is The Injury is the Way. And I believe it's written by, I know Stuart McGill, who's a doctorate in physiotherapy, had a hand in it. I believe he wrote the whole thing, but I'd have to double check that. But the Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, or The Gift of Injury. Two great books about perspective and how you perceive a situation, whatever that situation is. Situations are rarely, sometimes they are, but rarely are good or bad. That's their life. It's situations that pop up, and how you respond to those situations can either be positive or negative. And it's truly your response as to how it impacts you in your life as to how you're going to move forward from that. And so perspective is incredibly powerful. But anyway, this book, The Obstacle is the Way, talks about, like, if you face obstacles, if you face resistance, that means you are on the right path. If it were easy, everybody would do it. Okay. These are all like somewhat cliche sayings, and I'm probably, again, not giving you any information that's outside of mindset that you don't already know or haven't already come across. But when it comes to obstacles, if you see these obstacles, you're on the right path. And again, it's your choice to either work to overcome these obstacles or let those obstacles be the roadblock, the fork in the road to which you move on to something else. Not to say one is better than the other, but if you want something, go get it, and understand that if it is what you want, there is going to be obstacles in the way. And again, you can choose to overcome those obstacles, or you can choose to take the easy way out and just live, but then understand that you're probably not going to get to where you want. So the other thing is empowerment. That sense of confidence, that sense of strength, that sense of courage, that can come from overcoming these obstacles. Again, they're not easy. And often these obstacles require that you enlist the help of others, friends, family, leaders, coaches, what have you, to overcome these obstacles. The last thing or point that this book, Obstacles the Way, points out is that, it's not looking at the world with rose-colored glasses. Like, I'm going to accomplish my dreams and everything's going to be great. I'm going to be a billionaire living the high life on the beach. That's not it at all. It's how can you use these obstacles to your advantage? One example is I had a girl I trained years ago to help. She was trying to get on with fire in her local department. And she went into the training and into her fitness testing as everyone's going to look at me like I'm the weak girl. That was her mindset. And she used that to her advantage. She trained her ass off. She worked really hard. And, we went through a lot of different scenarios and worked together closely. But she outperformed every single candidate in her class to the point where she is now, lo and behold, like leading fitness within her municipality, in her city's department. And so, she used the obstacle, the perceived obstacle is everybody's going to look at me like I'm the weakling. I'm not the strongest. I'm not that. Not to say she was the strongest, not to say she was the best at any one thing, but she used that mindset to her advantage. And I'm going to work my ass off. I'm going to work my tail off, and I'm actually going to surprise them. So she went in knowing that they were going to look at her like the underdog, and she ended up overachieving everybody, which just kind of helped catapult her to better positions down the road. So she used those obstacles, or those perceived obstacles, as an advantage to her. And again, it's just highlighting the idea that perspective is very powerful. Okay. So I wanted to touch on the 3 daily tasks. And of course, yep. Okay. So the 3 daily tasks, apparently this is freezing. Okay. First one is, this looks different for everybody. I put a quote in there because this looks different for everybody. But daily task number 1, there was if you listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, he had Matthew McConaughey on there, and he said something really cool. I listened to it on my commute. I listened to podcasts and audiobooks and stuff like that. But this quote stuck out to me tons. And he said, check in with yourself before you check in with the world. So again, this looks different for everybody. For some people, they'll call it meditation. Others will call it journaling or writing in their diary, whatever it is. It looks different for everybody. I understand that. But taking time each day to center yourself, to reflect on the day previous, to strategize the day ahead, that is not an uncommon practice. And some of the most successful people in the world, if you draw some common lines, that would probably be a common line with most of them, is that they, quote unquote, check in with themselves before they check in with the world. Again, it looks different for everybody. Going to those 4 C's I always preach about, consistency being one, whatever allows you to be the most consistent. So I myself, I used to think it was super lame writing in a diary. And then now I would say I journal, meaning I get clarity on my day. I check in with myself. I reflect on the day past. What did I learn? How did I progress? How did I grow? What did I accomplish? What do I want to accomplish in the day ahead? So getting that clarity and centering myself really provided some crystal clear vision of like how I was growing and how I wanted to grow. And I could kind of catch little things as time's gone on. I can catch little things. Oh, I did that yesterday and it didn't really serve me as a person into growing or becoming the person that I want to be. And so this really helped me get clarity with myself. Again, it looks different for everybody. Journaling can be good. Meditation can be good. It's what works for you. But taking time each day to intentionally center yourself, it can be super uncomfortable for the first little while, but I guarantee you, if you're consistent and you do with it daily, you're going to develop some clarity, and you're going to develop a stronger mindset with some stuff. And you're also going to work in the direction that you want to work in. Okay. The second daily task that I'll get you to do is do something difficult. I originally, when I wrote this webinar and this masterclass, I wrote, do something fucking hard. Okay. So do something that you find difficult. That could be a number of things. It could be, I'm going to do my workout. For me today, that's going to be really hard for me to do and to accomplish. But if you do it, you'll walk out of that feeling empowered, feeling confident, feeling like, okay, I had the courage to do it. And lo and behold, it didn't kill me. Doing something difficult could be having a conversation with a loved one or a friend or family member or something like that. Where, it's a socially or mentally, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have. Okay. That could be something difficult. But if you, again, in your, let's say your morning meditation or morning journaling or whatever, you decide, okay, what is my difficult thing that I'm going to do today? What am I a little bit nervous about doing? Do that, because that's going to help you grow as an individual, probably more than most things. So that daily task of doing something difficult, from experience and from the women I've worked with, the ones that do that is more consistently, the better, usually end up growing their mindset or their ethos or their confidence, whatever it is they want to grow. That usually grows at a much faster rate when they do something difficult and when they have that clarity as to why they're doing it. I'm not saying go scale the Empire State Building because it's difficult. I'm not saying go climb Mount Everest because it's difficult. I'm saying choose what is difficult to you that day and do that. Obviously be smart about it, but if it makes you nervous, it's probably something that you should be doing. If it seems difficult, it's probably should be something you should be doing, whether that's a workout, whether that's within your workout, trying a weight a little bit heavier. Seek to learn something new every day. So again, that goes to that reflection, learning, going back and what did I learn from the day before? That helps develop that strong mindset. So the mindset guide that I'm going to give you, this is just, again, it's to be a guide. It's different for everybody. Some people will write these answers down. Some people will just meditate on these answers or do yoga and meditate on these answers. But what I found in the individuals I've worked with, again, the ones who do this, it helps them develop that mindset that they want in order to achieve the things they want to achieve. So if you go to the following link, I will email this and I'll put it in the Facebook group as well. But if you go to the following link, basically it's going to give you a PDF and it's just a bunch of questions on what I mentioned before. Get clear with yourself before you get clear with the world, or check in with yourself before you check in with the world. So go to the link, download the guide, and just do it daily in whatever way makes sense for you as an individual. I've been journaling for quite a while now. And like when I first went to my wife and she's like, hey, well, why are you getting up in the morning and where are you going? Are you going to work? I said, no, I'm actually, I sheepishly told her like, I'm going to journal. And then I told her why. And she actually sees, how should I say this? She respects that so much more. Whereas like before I was kind of afraid to tell her. And so that was like my, tough thing to do that day. But I came out the other side. Like I was nervous to tell her I was doing that because it's personal. It's for me. And I didn't want her to think I was lame or whatever. I honestly don't, not that she would, but those thoughts run through your head as an individual. And so it can really help you grow. So go to the link, download the guide. It's things that I've done myself. And it's things that I know with the women I've worked with, they've employed, and the ones who are consistent and develop that mindset really helps them get that clarity and develop the mental strength that ultimately they want to. And so again, whatever character traits that are important to them as an individual, by doing this on a daily basis, they get so much clarity on like, okay, I want to build more confidence. I want to do this. I want to do that. And implementing these three things daily, go back one more, implementing these three things daily, and then, following those questions each and every day within that guide is, the ones that have really, kind of put everything into that mentally, they're unstoppable. So if you have any questions, there's I put this in emails as well, but there's my email, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, website, what have you. If you go to any of those, you can link up with me. Any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll leave it open if there's any questions right now on the chat box. Nothing's come in so far, so I haven't really stopped, but that's all I have for you today. So go to the link. I'll send a follow-up email a little bit later on here on the mental training and with the link to access the guide. But that's it. That's all. So it looks like there's no other questions. So I have
a question. I just can't type it as quickly.
Sure.
I just do the women that you work with, do they have like certain templates to get in the mindset for like going to a test that they know they've failed before, and like what kind of like, not a template, but maybe what some steps they have done to like put them in that right mind frame. Like if there's like a outline. I know you talked about getting into your own mindset and knowing your traits and stuff like that. But I've done the test a couple of times. I just want to know if there's something else that I'm missing.
Yes. So there's probably two parts to that. This Jessica, I'm thinking, that's asking the question, I believe.
Yeah.
So there's two things with that. Well, yeah, I would say two things. So the first is like the ones, like everybody's individual, and especially when it comes to mindset, right? So, training, there are some fundamental principles, and mindset, there are fundamental principles as well. But I would say the individuals who are more self-aware, who are more clear with themselves, who have that self-awareness, usually will walk into those testing environments with a little bit better mindset. Now, nerves, like being nervous, is always going to pop up, always. Whenever there's like something on the line, nerves are going to pop up. But if I'm hearing you right, like you're kind of wondering, like, how do I get more confidence walking into the test? Is that?
Yeah, like because I'm much smaller female, I have struggled with a couple of the strength things. So I just want to get like clearly the working out and getting into that, like lifting heavier and more explosive movements. I just want to like know what other things mentally. Like I said, I failed the CPAT already, but I had to go right back into it. I know mentally I was like, all right, I got to do this because I'm here. But if there's anything else that I'm missing, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's really good that you experienced that. But again, like not to like, this isn't a cop out answer or anything, but when I look at like mindset, it's very individual based. So take, for example, you failed certain aspects and you're nervous about certain aspects of your fitness test. Now, what they're testing in a fitness testing environment is just that. They're testing you. They're trying to find, where are you strong, where are you weak? And there are minimum requirements that they have these expectations. But if I look at like super successful, like the women that I work with that are super successful in their careers and in those testing environments, they know what they're good at and they know what they're not. And, definitely through training, through conversations with myself, we work together to help them close the gap with the things that they are not good at. But if I'm talking to you, Jessica, like, you might not be able to do certain things due to your stature, your size. That's not like
for sure.
sexist thing to say. That's not like you're just like, I am a 195 pound male, 5'11". So like there are certain things that I can do that maybe you wouldn't be able to. And that goes both ways. And I think that's where a lot of the women that I work with, just shifting their mindset of like, it goes both ways. You can do things that I cannot. So when I work with like a firefighter, there are situations, there are spaces that you physically can get into that I can't. I will never be able to get to just because I'm much bigger. And so and that's where that self-awareness really kicks in, is understanding, okay, I'm good at this. I'm not as good at this, but I'm working at bridging the gap. But I understand like my value is that I'm really good at this thing. And especially as a firefighter, it's a team environment, right? And so I think it's very important that each member of the team has things that they're more exceptional at than others. And yes, everybody has to have like that minimum requirement, we'll say, but having developing that confidence and self-assurance that you are good at things that others aren't. And that's, I kind of told that story of that one woman where, she took that as an advantage. So that's the first part. The second part, maybe shortly answer your question. Usually when I work with women, there's kind of traditionally three ways that I'll work with individuals. One is just through like like, here's your workouts, very cheap option. It's very accessible for most people. Here's workouts, go do it. It's going to help you. And I have many women that follow that program or follow that workout. The two other scenarios is I actually do like semi-private coaching, where we have like a closed group on Facebook, and girls will pop up questions all the time. Like, hey, I got this test. Any advice from somebody who's done it recently? And they share experiences with each other. And that's part of what I'll go through on Fridays, like how to, whether you're working with me and the groups or whatever I do, or, you're on your own, how to develop that communication strategy and to link up with other individuals to develop that kind of thing. Because for me to say, this strategy is going to work for you from a mental strength standpoint, one, there's only so much I know about you at this point. So there's only so much I can give you. And that's where, like, if I'm working one-on-one with an individual, usually over time, like, I'm going to know how they operate. I'm going to know where I need to push them and where I need to kind of pump them up and give them confidence. So it is very individual based, but if you're looking for like, what am I missing? Truthfully, I can't say what you're missing right now, but I can say that, like, with the women I work with, the ones who are super self-aware and the ones who, again, going to those 4 C's, communicate with the others around them. Hey, what else can I do? How can I walk into this as prepared as possible? Those are, we'll say, key aspects to success. Does that help? Does that answer your question, or does that just give you more questions?
No, that definitely helps. Yeah, it makes sense because we clearly, like, you don't know me that well. So I just wanted to see if there was just a broad answer out there. But I'm sure I'll be emailing you with some more questions. But other than that, I'm good. Thank you.
No problem. I mean, the broad answer is that self-awareness, which really just comes through regular reflection and focus. That self-awareness is key. But then beyond that, as somebody becomes a little more self-aware, and as I, as a coach, get to know that individual, that's when I can identify some holes or some gaps that maybe we can work on or address, whether it's from a physical, nutritional, or mental state. So that's maybe the best way I can answer that broad but specific.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks.
No problem. Cool. So I'll leave that up. Like I said, thanks for jumping on, taking the time to watch this training and stuff. Like I said, I'll email everything as kind of a follow-up later on. But if that's it, I think I'll let you guys have your day, have your night. So thanks again, Lisa, Jessica. We'll see you soon. Oh, tomorrow, we're going over the last one, or not the last one, second last one, but tomorrow we're going to be touching on recovery. And this is a big one for first responders, especially with lack of sleep and this and that. So we're going to go over sleep strategies and whatnot on that. So hopefully you're free tomorrow, and we'll catch you later. Have a good night.